On behalf of the Global Wind Energy Council, my name is Jeanette Gitobu. I am the Women in Wind Global Leadership Program Coordinator and Director, and I am also your moderator for today's session. We hope to make it as interesting and inclusive as possible, so please do stay with us during the entire session. And now, please allow me a moment to give you a small brief of today's session. The key objectives of today's session is really truly to ensure that, one, the audience understands what it means to have a just and inclusive transition. Two, explore some of the programs that are currently available in the wind sector itself, driving this change. And three, to have a fireside chat and hear directly from industry participants and experts on what it takes to really drive and make this change a just and inclusive one. So if you'll allow me, I'd like to please welcome onto stage our first speaker of the day, Jen Bolke. He's going to give us a presentation about Windclusion.
Works. Good. Thank you very much, Janet, for introducing me. Thank you for the nice opportunity to be here and be able to speak at the GWEC forum here. Very nice exhibition so far for us. I think you all have met a lot of people. I hope we have some students here today, but as well, for sure, a lot of people from the wind industry already. We need both. So, and that's exactly what I want to talk about today. 1 minute? Okay. I can talk around it. Yeah, so I can at least start. I mean, Windclusion, as you can imagine, wind energy inclusion, and you will see a colorful presentation where we are talking about diversity. And I think this is what really wind is today. We are working in an industry, I am, from my position, I can say, working cross country. A lot of people working with me from China, from India, from Egypt as well. So it's a very diverse and interesting place to be in for the ones who are not in there. For the ones who are in there, I think everybody could tell that this is the truth, that wind is very, very diverse, and I will show you what that means. If the presentation is ready. We are ready? Trying to be. Okay, there we go. Cool. So I've nearly said all I wanted to say. No, I just start. So Windclusion originally was found nearly back 1 year. So we are a group of, I would say, wind enthusiasts, inclusion enthusiasts, like me from Owens Corning. We have LM Wind Power working with us, Siemens Gamesa, GE, Ørsted. So a lot of companies engaged and really started the foundation of Windclusion as a movement for the wind industries. And I will just talk about why we do that. Wind, I mean, everybody of us knows. I just had a nice chat with Bibi Teislev from LM Wind Power. We were talking about today's energy prices and all that stuff we are facing right now. I think never in the past or in the history of our energy supply it has been that difficult. And for that, I think wind is definitely one of the main pillars we need to work on. And this is what it shows, but really we need to work on that together. That means, I mean, definitely, and I heard that from Christina Obo in the past session, really collaborate within the industries, because this is probably something where we are too much related to thinking in IP rights and stuff like that. Probably to get more together and engage with each other. I think we do that at Current very frequently, partnering with a lot of companies in the industry, and this is what it requires. For sure, wind energy. Why wind energy? I mean, we have heard that as well from Christina, that we are in a transition phase. There will be a lot to do in the future due to the actual crisis and due to the request for recycling, sustainable energies, and so on. So, easy statement, renewable energy will be our future. Definitely for the ones who are not in wind, it is cool. I'm coming from aerospace and I really love to work in wind, so there was a transition for me as well. because wind is dynamic, unbelievable dynamic. We see blades increasing to lengths over 100 meters within 10 years. It's a crazy movement right now, and for sure there's a lot of stuff to do. And as you can see, I mean, for that, to do all that, what we are required to do, and we've heard about the market forecast and stuff like that, probably we are still underestimating what will happen within the next decade. But today we are working with some amount of like 1.5, nearly 2 million people in the wind industry. But we are heading into a situation where we need to be close to 5. That really means we need as well talented people willing to contribute to the wind industry. And I think there's never been a moment cooler than working in wind, because this is really, I think a huge thing you could do to contribute to, let's say, a better future without any kind of problems in depending on fossil gases or oils. So that's what I mean here is this market is skyrocketing in all kinds of ways. And this, as you probably have seen when you walk over the exhibition here, is very diverse in kind of the countries you may have seen here. So, I mean, we are placing wind power all over the world. We are working from China over India, over Egypt, over other countries, America, Denmark, Europe, very much in Europe as well. So all countries, even Southern America, has a lot to do in wind. So wind is diverse in a way of where we work at. It is diverse in regards to the people. We have a lot of people working in wind from all kinds of races, religions, from the countries I mentioned already, different genders, and very open for everything. And you probably will not see any other industry which is that diverse like wind is. I can talk about that because I was working in aerospace and it's different. Might look cool to have an aircraft working on, but an A380 is smaller than a wind blade, so could be a cool thing to be in wind as well, to contribute to that. And as I mentioned, from all kinds of regions and whatever it requires, everybody's invited to be in wind. And for sure, we have a large diversity of jobs. And I mean, I'm just mentioning some here because my slide is not as big as it needs to be. We can work in finance, and I can tell in Windclusion, in the group, we are working with guys from human resource and finance, from accountants, a lot of engineers for sure. You need some engineers in that as well, but there are scientists, production people, a lot of, we have even an IT guy in our group. So quite interesting how wide this industry is, and you can come from every kind of study or university, what you did to join the wind industry. There's a lot of jobs to do and a lot of things you could contribute to our future, as I mentioned. So, as I said, there's a lot more than the ones I mentioned, but I just wanted to show a little bit the picture of how wide this could be. And with that, I thank you very much. And please join the wind industry, and for sure join Windclusion. We are working on different work streams within our group. So you're all invited to really contribute to that. Because I think a movement is a movement, and then this is what we want to do with this alliance, if enough people are joining, and then we really can make a big change to the industry and to our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jen, for your presentation, and thank you so much to the audience as well for giving us the time. We'd like to move on to the next session, which is now a brief presentation about the Women in Wind Global Leadership Program, and I'll be doing the brief presentation about that. So please. Thank you. So as I previously mentioned before, my name is Jeanette Gitobu, and I am the current Women in Wind Program Coordinator and Director. This is a program that I am very passionate about, not only because I have the extreme opportunity to run the program, but because of the benefits that I and many other women, and I hope you'll hear from one of them today, can testify to in terms of the benefits it gives to the participants of the program. So the genesis of the Women in Wind program really truly began in 2019. The reason why is because GWEC alongside Irena, did a report called Wind Energy, A Gender Perspective. Out of this report, a survey was done out of many participants in the wind sector, and the results of that survey really startled GWEC, and especially to push us to ensure that we can be able to do something about it, to create tangible solutions that can be able to address some of the challenges that we discovered in this report. Key findings from this report include, for example, that that women make up 21% of the global wind energy workforce, and 65% of them perceive gender-related barriers in the sector. That number was staggering for us to be able to really truly understand what was going on. So we digged further and tried to understand what were these barriers. When it comes to barriers to entry, we saw that one, perception of gender roles and cultural and social norms was what is one of the barriers preventing women from entering the sector itself. Two, we also saw a lack of gender targets and prevailing hiring practices that also serve as barriers to entry. Three, there was a lack of awareness of opportunities. There was also self-perception and also discouraging workplace policies. And four, there's also a lack of STEM and non-STEM background. These were the areas that we discovered from the report as barriers to entry for women into the industry itself. In terms of barriers to retention, we had a lack of fairness and transparency in internal policies. We had a lack of remote work, flexi time, gender targets, mentorship and training programs, parental leave, on-site childcare, and we also had a lack of job sharing and part-time work modalities. In regards to barriers to advancement, we had cultural and social norms once again. We had glass ceilings. We also had a lack, once again, of gender targets and mentoring, child facilities, flexibility, limited mobility, and discouraging work practices. And then we also had, once again, lack of STEM and non-STEM background. These three areas were the key results that we found from that report that really drove the Global Wind Energy Council alongside our partners to really try and discover what can we be able to do to be able to drive these change. And that is how the Women in Wind Global Leadership Program was formed in 2019 to really create a change in the industry itself. To give you a brief overview of the program itself, the program itself is a 12-month program. It has three key areas as part of the program. It is a partnership between us, the Global Wind Energy Council, and GWNet, which also stands for the Global Women's Network for the Energy Transition. It has three key areas, under which we have the mentorship program, which is driven by our partners GWNet. Once we have recruited successful women into the program, we now work directly in the industry to matchmake them with leading women in the industry that can be able to advise them and give them tangible advice to move their careers in the industry and also help to develop them on a professional level. We also have a learning curriculum as well that is delivered through webinars and also, like for example, here we are in Hamburg, a physical study tour in Europe to provide networking opportunities as well. And we also ensure that through the GWEC network of over 1,000 companies across the entire value chain of wind itself, we're able to elevate their profiles in this industry and promote them as thought leaders, not because they're women, but because they have the knowledge, the skills, and the drive to be able to make a tangible change in this industry. In terms of program impact, we have on an individual level, personal development and also career development. On a company level, we do promote best practices in diversity. We also have demonstrating diversity of role models for female leadership in the industry. And on an international level, through our global partners, we provide global visibility in addition to engagement with international institutions in the past, such as IRENA and the UNFCCC. A timeline of the program. As I had mentioned before, it is a 12-month program. Applications are usually launched in January of every year. In March, we have done the selection process. Therefore, we have the kickoff webinar that we host to welcome each new cohort into the program. We have monthly mentorship interactions that happen thereafter every single month, driven by both the participants and their selected mentors. We also have knowledge transfer webinars to deliver tangible knowledge, both technical and personal, to help develop talent in the industry itself. We have a study tour that happens in the fall, such as at this wonderful conference that we're here at today. And then finally, we have a graduation ceremony in January before the entire process begins all over again. To give a couple of overview about the Women in Wind community at the current moment, these are the areas of expertise that we currently have in terms of the women within our network. As you can see, we have a lot of women who have an engineering background, also project stakeholder management background, business development, environmental impact, public and policy regulation, and the list goes on and on. We have a very diverse group of women that have a huge network to access through the Women in Wind Global Leadership Program. In terms of degrees, we have a variety of different degrees that they have pursued, ranging from a bachelor's degree all the way up to a PhD. In terms of engagement, the Women in Wind program itself focuses on countries in the global south that GWEC has identified as strategic emerging markets growing in their wind uptake. In Africa, for example, we have had huge engagement from South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, Ethiopia, Senegal, and Egypt. In Asia, we have had huge engagement from India, Turkey, Vietnam, Russia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. And in Latin America, we've had huge engagement from Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, and Chile. These are the markets that we here at Women in Wind focus on in terms of driving gender diversity and inclusion, but also the Women in Wind program itself. Thank you so much for your time and for the presentation. I'd like to mention that this presentation is available online. Therefore, if you wish to reference any of the details that have been shown, please log on to the GWEC social media networks and you'll be able to access that information. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome two individuals onto stage to have a fireside chat about the programs that are available in the wind industry driving a just and inclusive energy transition. So please, Jen, may I welcome you back onto stage? And Kolud as well, may I please invite you onto stage. Please, let's give them a round of applause as they walk on stage.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much both for joining me on stage. It's a huge honor to host you for the remaining time that we have. I just have a couple of questions. This is a fireside chat, therefore it's a conversation that we're having and not a formal panel, all right? Jen, I'd like to start with you first and foremost. I saw on your presentation that you said Windclusion is your partner empowering the wind industry. And that was a very interesting phrase to me because the question I was left with was, what kind of partners would be a best fit for Windclusion? What are you looking for in partners?
I mean, you've shown a quite nice presentation about women in wind. So this is at least an interesting partner, and I know we are talking with each other. Mm-hmm. This is one of the things we require to do. I mean, networks are around there within wind, within composites as an ecosystem behind wind, for example, if it comes to blades, but other networks in regards to turbines, generators, and stuff like that are really interesting to collaborate. And finally, within the wind industry, it is really, as I said before, it is really necessary to collaborate because there's probably has not been too much collaboration in the past, but we really need to be inclusive to ourselves as well.
Well, that's great to know what you're looking for. And as a follow-up question as well, because Windclusion is definitely having a large umbrella covering a broad spectrum of different inclusive topics. When it comes to now some of those areas that you're looking into working in, do you have specific areas that you're looking to drive inclusivity in?
Sure. I mean, there's a as I've shown, there's a big demand for people working in wind. So where do we start? Where do we end? I mean, finally, at least it is the kind of being still attractive to the people working in wind. So this is part of our work. We have a group working on that work stream. We have groups working on universities and schools at least, because I think it should start at schools. We have at least a decade or 15 years in front of us where this will, as I've shown with the rocket, will take off. So we really need to work with schools, collaborate with schools and I think we have a good momentum because we see all this Friday for Future demonstrations and stuff. There are a lot of people willing to contribute to wind, and these guys we need to attract as well.
Well, it's good to know. Allow me for a moment to talk to Kholoud. Hello, Kholoud.
Hello, Janet.
How are you?
All good.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks to you. It's a great opportunity.
You're most welcome. So I just have a couple of questions for you. Can you please tell us where you're from, what you do, and the Women in Wind program?
Okay, I am from Egypt. I am a site engineer at a wind farm in deserts of Egypt. I work as a maintenance planning and reporting engineer with a focus on monitoring the performance of the turbine and the generation. I joined Women in Wind because I'm really fascinated by how it empowers women and how it encourages women for leadership. Because, I would like to build on what you have stated in your presentation, that there are very minority of wind in the sector. Me, myself, I'm the only one in my work area, so also in management, the report you have stated, it says also that only 8% are in senior management and only 13% are in management. So this is what I like about the program. Also, it brings people from all over the world that now I know everyone. I know many people from many countries. So it's a huge networking panel, and also we need to bring all minorities together to grow the group and keep growing and having more women into this industry.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to go back to the point where you said you're the only woman that is currently working at your location, correct?
Yeah, at the site.
At the site.
Yeah.
How is that? What is one challenge you can say you have experienced being in that environment?
Yeah, it's a challenging, really it's a tough environment, but I would like also to mention that I receive a great support from everyone. Like, I receive support from my family, from my company, and from Joe Wick as participant of the Women in Wind program. So I receive a great support, but it's challenging because it's a tough environment. You are the different one in the group, so you have the responsibility or expected to have the responsibility to take initiatives while communicating and networking with them and working with them and blend into this group.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Kholoud.
Thank you.
I'll come back to you. I just want to go to Jen for a bit.
Thanks.
So I have additional questions for you in regards to Windclusion. What would you say would be the larger vision for Windclusion moving forward? How would you like now to incorporate everyone into that larger vision specifically?
I think first of all, with sessions like that one here, we really need to kind of spread that info we have, the things we are working on. Mm-hmm. We need people with really great ideas. We have some nice visionaries in the group as well. And I would say really, kind of the vision is clear. We are in an industry which is required, which is probably the most important pillar for global sustainability. So I would say the vision is definitely to make this happen, what is required to happen. And as I showed, if we don't have the people and we do not attract that big amount of women, big amount of people all over the world, we cannot make it happen. And this is where we are requiring a lot of support from everybody.
That's very much good to know. And support is always good to have and good to know where to go for it. And these kind of forums definitely provide that kind of a platform. You had mentioned earlier also in your presentation that you're really looking to target students and really have to work with them. What kind of students are you looking for so that if someone in this audience, for example, has the qualifications you're looking for, they can be able to come and reach out to you? So what are you looking for?
Yeah, I think your slides showed a lot as well. Like my bubbles was a little bit the lollipop style of that, but you have shown what is in wind. We have engineering and that things I mentioned, IT and so on. So I would really say, for sure we need engineers. This is one part, but not the only one. and at least it would be cool to have women engineers in our group, because I like that kind of balance. If I remember my school times, school was always cool if we were not too much men in one room. So it's interesting to have a kind of good homogeneity of things. But as mentioned, I mean, if there is, for example, any kind of psychologist around, it could be a very nice opportunity to work in human resources, right? So that's what I meant. It's diverse. So from whichever background you come, you can work within Wind. I'm working with a group over there that we have one guy coming from economy. I'm more from the engineering part, but I'm in marketing today, doing strategic stuff in market intelligence. Who thought that I would do that? Yeah, and this is what you really see. So it's as well cool to be able to, whatever you're interested in, you can have kind of a movement through the wind industry. And I had diverse jobs as well, so I'm probably a good example for diversity. I was in science, I went to sales, I'm right now in strategic marketing, I've been a business unit leader for a machine company. So very different, and whatever you're interested in, you can contribute with anything.
It's great to hear. And I have one more question as well, just before I move back to Khulud, would be when it comes to having a just and equitable transition itself, from the viewpoint of Windclusion, what exactly does that mean? What will a just and equitable conclusion mean from the perspective of Windclusion?
If just go back and ask the question again, then probably I have some time to think about that.
No problem. So I'll speak to Khulud for a bit.
Yeah,
No,
just you can just ask the question again, because I did not get everything through the microphone.
No problem. So the main topic for today is having a just, equitable, and inclusive transition, not just in the wind sector, but around the entire energy sector. So I wanted to know, from Windclusion's perspective, what does a just and equitable transition mean to Windclusion?
Yeah, I mean, so it is really, as I said, I mean, we need that kind of momentum of right now being. And I think, as I mentioned in my presentation as well, wind is already very inclusive, right? So just we are already inclusive, but still, as you can think, I mean, if you look into some companies in like back 5 years, I was probably not allowed to wear that shoes coming to the stage, right? This is as well something where we need to be inclusive. We talked about people having tattoos and piercings and that stuff. I mean, this is as well inclusion. We should not kind of put a finger onto somebody and say, hey, he's not fitting in that suit, so probably not the best to join. I had an intensive discussion with Bibi about that today in the morning. Really, we have genius people being tattooed, having long hair within our group, at least in the director level in my company. I can tell it's kind of crazy what kind of diverse people we have, and that's why just means right now. And I think there's a very big openness in the industry to do that and to still go on with that, and that's why it's so cool to as well have women in wind.
Thank you for that and for sharing that. Allow me to move on to Khulud. Khulud, I'd like to ask you a couple more questions about your experience being an engineer in this sector, but then also having some of the experiences in the Women in Wind program itself. What would you say has been the highlight of the program that you can say has really benefited you?
There are many, but I would say that the team building highlight was so good for me because we were a group of women all discussing the challenges, all discussing the ups and down feelings in being a minority in a group of men. So it makes you feel that you're not alone. There are other people who have same challenges and they are amazing, really, and inspiring. So it was so good to get to know these amazing people and to know that you are not alone. You have so many like you in the industry, and we are fighting for growing this group.
Well, I'm glad to hear that as well. And my next question would be, if you look at the program into the future, what would you tell the next woman who is interested in applying for the program? What advice would you give her?
I would advise that she goes, of course, and apply and go for it. It was a very enriching experience. We had a lot of learning and a lot of fun as well. It was so fun, and the study trip was so good. So I would say go apply for it. You are much better than you think. we women tend to underestimate themselves, but we are so good. So yeah, I would encourage every woman to apply for that.
Thank you for sharing that. And because I know you're an engineer, for many engineering women who may be in the room and are interested in applying, let's say, and joining the wind sector, what advice would you give a woman who wants to join the wind sector as well?
It's a great learning opportunity. Like wind has a very long supply chain, and it has very many areas that engineers can work on. So like you will keep learning every day after another. So don't miss out this opportunity. I would say that.
And would you mind sharing a bit about how you got into the wind sector as well in your career?
Yeah, sure. First, I had my master's in renewable energy engineering. Then I worked with a regional agency called Recreate. It is an Arab regional agency. And then I knew from this agency, my company, it is a wind energy developer. I seeked them and I contacted the HR, applied. I was so fortunate to find a vacancy. First, I worked in the head office as business development, project management, and then I decided to go to the site. So this is how I got to the wind energy. So it was so good to like work on a whole project from development to operation.
That's amazing. That is definitely amazing. And thank you so much for sharing about your career journey.
Thank you.
Jen, I'd like to come back to you briefly. With women like Khaled in the sector specifically, who are making strides in the wind sector itself while also driving diversity, equity, and inclusion, what other support would you say that you need to be able to make sure that we can make Windclusion a successful initiative together?
Definitely from all the people around. So we would want to have other companies joining as well, because as I said, we were a group of people founding that. Right now we have a lot of people working on the different work streams from those different founding partners, as well from some externals right now. But I think to really make it a movement, we would require others, from big to small companies, would be really great. And this is as well kind of probably a little bit a call to action, because you have said something nice, and within your question was as well kind of really what we contribute to within Windclusion and within Women in Wind. This is a big network. You said it was fun. You said you had a lot of time. You learned or got to know a lot of more women working in wind. For me, Windclusion, for example, is kind of the same. I was working on the engineering kind of base. I learned so many people, got to know so many people, as I said, from HR, from all those different spaces. Today I'm working with some guys from IT, within wind energy, working for Siemens Gamesa, for example. And really those alliances here, we are really as well providing to anyone interested a huge network which is behind it, and which is really probably one of the things which you will require if you want to join that or join wind. I think most important is having network, and with our groups here, we really can as well support that you have a network into the wind market, get to know people. I mean, you could ask us via our homepage or on LinkedIn, hey, what does working in wind mean? So what does an engineer do? And I think we will have 180 answers for that, and a lot of support, because I remember myself being an engineer, studying engineering. As I said, diverse jobs I had. So I think my main question after was, what does an engineer do? And I didn't know what the answer is. I learned that on the job. So, and it's cool. Joining these networks could really support you to probably right after school, or at least within school already, to kind of identify your region of interest. And this is what we, I think, require.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would like to clarify a bit more. When you're mentioning the different work streams that are currently available, would you share what those work streams are so that you can understand more what they are? Yeah,
sure. I mean, there's one part where I'm in, for example, being very active LinkedIn. We are really working on LinkedIn, showing people facts and figures, as we've seen the one about the jobs, right? And there's a lot of more things. I mean, the jobs relate to the gigawatts installed. So we are coming from a market intelligent point of view. We are using a lot of data from GWAC for that, which is available. Really interesting. And then we kind of show some things which are nice. I personally did, for example, a post, because I'm I'm probably a very passionate guy in wind. I'm even on holidays building small wind energy turbines, putting them onto the sand, right? And a lot of others doing things there. So we are engaged in that LinkedIn site to really as well attract people and to show how cool it is in wind. We are working, as I said, on schools. So we are going to schools to join them, to give a kind of interesting speech, more the interactive way to explain people what it means to potentially work in wind. And I said, I mean, we see a lot of young people doing demonstrations on Fridays. So we really see that there is a big interest, and we are working with universities, and those universities are as well. I mean, we have good ones in Denmark. We have a lot of universities in Germany, all over the world. I have in my university where I have my office, and just have an office. We have a lot of Indian people there, so you see them coming from all regions, and that's where we are trying to really support the people by explaining what you can do in wind, and then you have the choice, because I think in choosing a job, choice is the most important thing.
That is very true. And as a follow-up question as well, because Windclusion, I mean, the wind sector is global at the same time. And whilst in Europe, sometimes having access to resources can be easily available, for those countries in the global south, let's say, that don't have access to the same resources, how can they be able to get involved with Windclusion no matter where they are?
They can contact us. Very easy. I think as we are Windclusion, we are inclusive to everyone. So really, if there is anyone in the world seeing this right now, I don't know from where, I have seen that we are live on LinkedIn, would be really great if you join us. At least it's easy to just follow the page of Windclusion on LinkedIn. But it's as well easy to just drop a message. We have a lot of administrators always following what is coming in. So I really ask everybody to engage on that. And I mean, you're right. We have some expertise in the different areas globally. So, but still, if I walk around here in the wind energy sector, it's like a family, which is as well very cool. And that's why I think the family helps each other. So if there are others from anywhere in the world requiring some expertise, definitely something where we could help and include them into our group.
Okay. And similar question to what I had asked Khaled earlier. What advice would you give someone who is interested in joining the wind sector, specifically from the viewpoint of Windclusion?
What advice? I would say it's definitely, as I said, I'm passionate on that. Definitely a business to work in, being engineer, working, for example, on site, and having so much diverse and versatile jobs is something you really want to work at. And as I said, you can as well probably within the wind industry easily change the jobs you do, because you learn a lot in the meantime, and that's as well something we require. We're not talking about, okay, that guy is walking from there to there. This is what really as well builds up partnerships, builds up networks, because I always kept saying, a guy who's leaving a company is increasing my network to this other company. And this is what we as well require. So really my advice is jump into wind, and it's a fun place. You see, we have engaged women who are really starting to work in that. We are in Windclusion. I'm the minority, being a man. So this shows really where this moves, and that's why I would really like to engage more people, yeah, to contribute as well.
Perfect. So we have 3 minutes remaining to our session. Is there anyone who has any questions for our panelists?
Yeah, thanks, Jeanette, and thanks, guys. My name's Stuart Mullen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Global Wind Energy Council. I have a question in relation to this panel. Everyone's talking about being, how wonderful the talent is and how talented people are. Do we also need people that maybe are just average, that aren't top talent? Do we have an unskilled workforce, and are there same opportunities for people to come in at a very low level in the in wind entry-level positions and rise to the top? Or do we only look for, we're talking about engineering, we're talking about getting more skill sets in, and it looked like it was great with people are well educated, etc. But what about people that don't have the opportunity? What are the pathways for those people?
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Very good one. I think this is as well where we really need to, on the one hand, be inclusive, because it's easy, right? I studied myself and I'm talking about engineering and that stuff, so I really like the question. And that's actually probably a huge group you are talking about. And probably we are talking, if I'm, from my perspective, I'm talking a little bit about a low percentage of people, but wind really means people from everywhere, from every kind of educational level. We have all the big facilities where we are building things really, and those guys are really making it happen. I'm talking about it; they are making it happen. So it is really as well meant to include those people who probably didn't have the chance to, for example, study, to go to school for a long period like I did, which I'm thankful for. Yeah? But we have a lot of people around, and I can tell within my company, within Owens Corning, I'm working with people who probably did not study, but they're on the same level like I am. And which is a really cool thing, because you have big chances in wind to as well with a lower educational level, if you are trying to contribute and you are willing to do stuff and passionate on the job. I think everybody who's passionate is better than one who has studied whatever and is a PhD but is not passionate. So, and that's where we really need those people, at least as much as we need educated people from universities.
Thank you so much for that question. Are there any other questions? But I think as we're looking for questions, Kolud, I'd also like to ask you, because you've had the experience of working in the wind industry from one level to the next level. If you could talk to someone who is in university right now, what advice would you give them to join the wind sector at that level?
Okay, well, as John said, wind has many areas that engineers can work on. Project management, business development, finance, HR, there are so many areas. So it depends, but the technicality of wind energy, I don't know. I learned it in university. Like I learned wind energy in university. It was my field of study. So for someone who hasn't learned it, I think it is not that. It takes time, but you can learn. Like if you are passionate about it, you can learn it. So I would say just start and just do job shadowing and just follow someone who is very knowledgeable and leadership, and you got to learn it if you want to learn it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Do we have any other questions from the floor before closing the session? Alrighty. In that case, we have come to time. Thank you so much to both our panelists for giving time today, and thank you again to the audience as well for giving us time and space to have this discussion with you. Please have an amazing rest of the day and an amazing end of the conference itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.